Hey everybody, welcome to the Slick Tree Podcast. I'm your host, Colby Langford. The point of this show is to help improve ourselves as dogmen and to raise the quality of the dogs on the end of our lead. So let's settle in, turn the volume up, and let's see if we can't learn a trick or two together from our guests.
Probably one of my favorite casts that we were on. I actually drew out with Scott Renfro, and he was hunting Hall of Fame Rocky Dog. And Tracy Rash was hunting Dot the Eye. And Scott guided us there at Land Between the Lakes, Lake Barkley State Resort is where we were staying there. And Scott says, hey, I've been hunting this spot all week long. We've been down here. Let's just hunt right here. So we did. And I had Bud, of course. Thinking he was probably 4, maybe 5. But we went over to this spot, and Bud absolutely put on a show. I think Rocky treed 2 squirrels, and Dot the Eye treed 1 squirrel. And Bud was 7 for 7.
Whew.
And Scott said, I should have known better bringing a squirrel dog over here. But that was one of the most exciting casts for me. Just like he could do no wrong. You know, he was just getting split treed, having a squirrel. Even the last tree that he made was out in this big flat down on the beach of one of them bays. And he was out in a big old, it looked like a slashing. There wasn't a tree in there bigger than a baseball. You know, it was real thick, hard to walk through. And I thought, what is he doing? I get out there, and darned if you don't have a gray squirrel up this little tree. And I just couldn't believe it, you know. He was that kind of dog. If squirrels were stirring, you know, he could just beat your eyeballs out, you know. There was one other cast, if you don't mind me jumping.
No, go ahead.
There was one other cast. He did the same thing. He was 6 for 6 one time at the UKC World Hunt in Indiana, hunting against Greg Maynard with Blackout. And I cannot remember the other fella's name. He was hunting a cur dog, a tree banging Betsy, I think, from Virginia. But anyway, Blackout was 5 for 6, and Bud went 6 for 6, and the Betsy dog had, I think, 2 squirrels or 3 squirrels. And Blackout was a blow through the world type dog. She was just I don't want to accuse her of being a straight liner, but she would, when Greg had her that day, she was straight lining, and Bud was treeing squirrels behind her. And which wasn't necessarily his expertise, but that day it was. I mean, he was just picking them off as he come to them, and we'd be headed to her, and he'd fall tree to the left or to the right, and have a squirrel. And anyway, I've had some real good hunts with him. His motor is really what kind of put him on the map. You know, he just always had a lot of go.
Mm-hmm.
So that in his mouth. He's always had a real good mouth. Even today, the old dog's got a great mouth for his age. You can just hear him a long ways. That's been one of the things that he's thrown has been good mouths. So I'd say that's probably what put him on the map is his motor and mouth, you know.
Yeah, it's always fun when you take one that's tuned up and and
Yep.
clicking and put them in squirrels and watch them do what they do.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Well, everybody, you are listening to the Slick Tree Podcast, and today we've got another installment of the Good Old Dog series, and we've got Adam O'Donnell on here, and we're talking about Porcupine Mountain Bud. How are you doing today, Adam?
I'm doing good, sir. Thank you. Doing good.
Well, Adam, why
Looking
don't you tell us a little about yourself and where you're from and that kind of stuff?
Sure. I'm Adam O'Donnell. I'm 51 years old. Live in Byron, Michigan, which is central lower part of the state. Uh, we're actually not in Porcupine country right here where I live, but I've been here my whole life, and we do have porcupines, obviously, in Michigan. Um, I got the kennel name because when I got into the cur dogs, I noticed everybody has mountain this and mountain that, and I thought, well, here I am in flat farmland. What do I call my kennel name? And I looked at the state of Michigan, and I said, well, there's always the Porcupine Mountain Range, in northern Michigan that kind of associates us with Michigan. And then there's Iron Mountain and a couple others, but I thought I like that Porcupine Mountain. So I called him Porcupine Mountain Bud. That was my kids were calling him Bud at the time, so I just threw that name on him. Um, I didn't own his mom at the time, but I raised her, and I didn't have a kennel name, so to speak. But I knew with the male raising the first male, I wanted potentially as a stud dog to name him something that was mine,
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, we like tree dogs. I've been following tree dogs since I was probably 12 years old. Raised coonhounds up till about I'd say about 15 years ago. I just went all squirrel dogs. Dabbled with beagles, of course. Always rabbit hunted as a kid, but I was very passionate about coonhounds for a lot of years. Uh, but anybody that coon hunts hard knows it's hard on family, hard on a marriage, and that's not any different for me. I basically give it up because it wasn't fair to my wife to raise our family uh, alone with me gone all the time, working two jobs, coming home, trying to coon hunt, being out late at night, getting up early in the morning and going to work, coming home grumpy because I'm tired. Not a good mix.
Yeah.
So I give up the coon hunting and tried beagles for a while, but I found myself um, just missing the tree dogs. I love a good beagle, but there's something about a tree dog. I just can't get away from it. And so we tried, I want to say back in '08, I got my first mountain cur, and that was Bud's mother, actually. And it just was a good fit for our family. It was a daytime sport. The kids enjoyed it. My wife loved the breed. Uh, so we've been raising mountain curs ever since.
Nice. You kind of started touched on what my next question was going to be. Let's talk about where Bud came from. You said that he
Okay.
owned his dam. Who was she and what was she out of? And
Yeah. Uh, Libby, I called her Thunderstruck Libby, I think. I think that's what I called her. But anyway, I got her from Danny Hamilton out of Virginia, or maybe it was West Virginia. I did not want a yellow dog. I wanted a brindle, but she's all I could find. I had another pup booked, and she ended up not having them, or they died, or something. So I was getting desperate. So I ended up settling for a yellow pup. We got her, and at that time it didn't really matter. I was in love with her. She's a cool dog. Um, I got her started early. I'd say early by most standards. She was 9 months old. I think she started treeing squirrels. Um, was trying to coon hunt her and squirrel hunt her. Uh, it's a little confusing for her a little while there, and I was getting a little frustrated with her, but she really turned on uh, in the daytime, and actually was a nice little squirrel dog. She would go find a squirrel. Um, Had a nice motor. Wasn't a straight line hunter, but she cut the woods up real good, real accurate, and she got more accurate with age. But I bred her when she was 2 to Mountain State Apache. Actually met Mark Morrison right there at Jamestown. Bred her in the parking lot with 50 guys standing around. Uh, and then I raised that litter, and I kept one. I called her Lady. Um, and Lady really turned on real young and was doing a nice job. And I had some trouble with a vehicle. I had to come up with some money, and so I decided to sell Libby so that I could afford to fix my truck. And so I sold Libby to Daryl Reed. He had the Thunder's Blue Smoke Dog, if I'm not mistaken. Um, and I just kept the pup because the pup was doing good. And Daryl ended up selling her to Jeff Hoke from Virginia. And Jeff campaigned her in WTDA. And actually, I don't know what year it was, but she was Dog of the Year one year in WTDA. Um, Night champion, bench champion, tree champion, squirrel champion, all that, whatever. But he sold her to a guy in Michigan, Al Inglesman, who I had never met. Now, this is the funny thing. When I had originally wanted to breed Libby, I called Alan Franklin and said, Alan, who do you think I ought to breed her to? And he told me, you ought to consider Bobtail Fred. Al Inglesman's got him up there in Michigan, and that's probably who I'd go to. Well, I hated the name for whatever reason. I thought, I'm not breeding to a dog named Fred. I just ignored it and did my own thing. But Al bought her, unbeknownst to me, and he bred her to Fred because he owned Fred. And that's where Bud come from, was that cross. The weird story is I had the pup. If you remember, I kept that female pup. That was Lady. Mm-hmm. She made a better coon dog than anything else. So I decided at the time I was going to breed her to Tree Knocking Ammo because he was the world night champion. Well, then somebody said, heck, why go all the way to Tennessee? Al Inglesman's got a littermate brother to him right there in Michigan, which was Tree Knocking Cyrus. So I set it up with Al to just go ahead and breed her to Cyrus rather than drive 12 hours to Tennessee and breed to Ammo. And the weird thing is she finally come in heat. I pulled in Al's yard to drop her off. And I'm looking at this yellow dog and it's blowing my mind. I'm like, holy cow, this is deja vu. What in the... I swear to God, that's Libby. And it was. I didn't even know she was back in Michigan. So Al comes out chuckling. He's like, you recognize her, don't you? I said, is that who I think it is? He said, yep. I just got done raising a litter of pups. I just weaned them. I said, you've got to be kidding me. So he showed me the pups. I immediately fell in love with the brindle one, which was what I always wanted anyway. And he didn't want to let me have one. I begged and begged. I said, look, just let me take that pup home. We'll go halves on him. I'll do all the work. I'll hunt him. If he makes something, I'll campaign him, you know. He finally conceded and let me take the pup home. And the long story short is Lady didn't take. And turned out Cyrus was sterile. and he didn't know it. So I had paid him a stud fee, and of course I had the pup now for 2 months by the time we realized she wasn't going to have any pups. And he said, rather than me pay you back the stud fee, I'll just send you the pup papers. You keep that mail. So I ended up with Bud that way. It was supposed to be a partnership deal, and of course, out of sight, out of mind. You know, he didn't have that pup in his mind all the time because I had him. So he let me have him, and he mailed me the papers. So now Bud was my dog, and so heck, it wasn't. He was probably 3 months old at that time, 4 months old. It was a let me think. It was 6 weeks later. He was treeing at 5.5 months old. He was treeing wild squirrels already. So I don't think Al ever regretted giving me all of Bud because I pushed him. I promoted him, and of course that made Fred look good. But yeah, Bud was a natural, just absolutely. The first time that pup was born, I think in May, maybe April. And that September, I was carrying a bag of feed out to dump for some deer, and the pup started treeing in this tree line. And I was, what in the world is he barking at? Just a little guy. And ended up being a wild bird that was up there chirping at him or something. But I knew then he was special, just real barky and willing to bark at stuff. That's important to me, especially nowadays when I'm looking for a pup. I like them that are real mouthy,
Mm-hmm.
But Bud was that way. He was willing to bark at things, and it was no time at all. He was treeing squirrels. So he was a real easy starting pup. So
Any other notable dogs out of his litter?
yeah, there were all actually I would say notable above average, if you want to call it that. No, there was 4 pups in that litter, 3 yellow females, and 1 brindle male, which was Bud. Ron Woodward raised. He called her Dirt Dodge Annie, I think. Might have been Bobtail Annie, but I think it was Dirt Dodge Annie. Anyway, that was the little smallest yellow female, and she was absolutely a natural. I stopped in there for coffee one day when them pups were about 3.5 months old, and Annie was out running around. And I was so impressed with the little things, but she was chasing them flying grasshoppers. She'd cruise around his front yard. He lives way back off the road until she jumped herself a grasshopper and it would fly, and she chased that thing as long as she could see it. And when that thing landed somewhere and she lost sight of it, she'd go hunting for another one. And Ron was saying, I got to put her up. She will wear herself out. And I thought that was so cool. She was just that gamey.
Mm-hmm.
But she made a nice dog. My best friend Scott Freesorger ended up buying her, and he kept her till she died. And she was a UKC squirrel champion. Probably should have been an OMCBA squirrel champion, but I never really pushed her too hard. I almost won the state hunt with her one year, and got beat by George Danielson. But anyway, it was close hunt. She looked good. But her other sister was in Indiana. She was the first one to tree a wild squirrel, and somewhere in my phone I have a video of it. She treed a squirrel up an apple tree, I think it was. But she got hit in the road chasing a deer, before she was even a year old. She got killed. The other one was Bobtail Abbey, and that's the one that Al kept for himself. He was going to keep two, her and Bud, and Al. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Darren Allgood might have started her for Al, but Al ended up selling her to a pleasure hunter in Lansing who hunted her. I actually hunted with him one time, and man, she looked good. And then Al ended up getting her back. I hunted her for a while. She's all squirrel dog. Nice motor. Stayed a little closer. She was a 300-400 yard dog. Real nice mouth, and that was the Gyp that Al bred to Thunder's. Was it Blackjack? Franklin's Blackjack or whatever the Blackjack dog was that produced the dog that's really throwing some good ones now, Little Jack. That was a cross that Little Jack came from. So the guys that are in the cur dog world, they know who I'm talking about. I think it's the Blackjack dog, Little Jack. Those are some reproducers in the breed. So anyway, obviously, Blackjack produced Bobby Taylor's Little Gyp that he's won the world hunt a couple times with her. So there's a lot of just good, solid squirrel dog blood there,
Mm-hmm.
So the Abby, I mentioned what she produced, Little Jack, but beyond that, Annie produced Jackson, Action Jackson. David Fletcher owns him now. He's won a ton of money in USDC. Terry Shearer raised him. And then the brother is Hummer's Image, and he's been known as Image Maker. The Image dog, Mike Powers raised him. His first name was Maverick, but he was a natural. Tree and squirrel, super young. Mike was constantly posting videos of him treeing at a really young age, and he's way up there high in the USDC money winnings. I think Brian Leverage hunts him now. Those dogs are getting some age on them now, but that cross was really good as far as the two males that were produced. That was out of Hummer, bred to Annie. And then we bred Annie to Festus. And by all rights, that was not nearly as good of a cross. The one pup out of that cross that made a superstar was Porcupine Mountain Flo. And Ken Grice owns her now. And she is a beast. Man alive. She is all motor. I'm talking about she's going to find a squirrel somewhere. It doesn't matter. She may end up checking out to do it, but she is unreal. She's just a really outstanding little female. Not the hardest tree dog in the world, but sadly, I think she's the only one in that cross that really made anything. I don't think the other pups really made much out of Annie and Festus, but that one sure did. She's almost NSD Hall of Fame, and she's something to be reckoned with wherever Ken hauls her,
Mm-hmm.
So that would be a summary of the cross, the overall litter mates to Bud. Obviously, Bud himself has produced multiple what I call freaks or super, super nice competition type dog,
Mm-hmm.
multiple world champions. As you probably already know, or maybe some of the listeners already know, he crossed best on daughters of Hummer, the hard treeing type, uh, daughters of Hummer, Tiger Creek Pip produced the world champion Tiger Creek Nailer, who won the OMCBA Senior World Hunt as a junior dog. And I asked Bobby, why you hunting him in the senior hunt when he's a junior? He said, "Well, we drove all this way. We might as well play with the big boys."
Hmm.
And they wouldn't let you hunt in both. So he said, if we're going to win it, we might as well win the big one. So he won the world hunt that year with the junior dog on 3 legs
Hmm.
that was having seizures
Oh
because
wow.
he had him coon hunting in Indiana, and he climbed a tree and fell out and cracked his skull or whatever, and the dog was having seizures. He was a hot mess, but he went on to win the world hunt. And the very next year, I placed reserve world champion with the littermate brother that I had, the nailer, that I called Porcupine Mountain Ben. Ben had also won the NSD Breeders' Showcase, which is also known as the Junior World Hunt. At that time, they weren't calling it that, but they are now. Um, so yeah, there was Tip. She also produced Grand Squirrel Champion Porcupine Mountain Deuce out of the second cross, and some other females that don't have the notoriety because they haven't been promoted, but Libby and Gypsy. Every pup out of those two litters made something, made, squirrel dogs. But Deuce, Ben, Naylor, Libby, I would say, are the four that would be categorized as extra special. And then there was, geez, May, 2020 May, owned by Herbie Hicks. Uh, Herbie was the first one to breed the Bud. Uh, he hunted with him when Chad Murphy was handling Bud for me, and that was a good cross. I raised one out of that made uh, an OMCBA Squirrel Champion. The dog called Porcupine Mountain Briar, uh, outstanding dog, and there was several others in that cross that were really good. That cross didn't stand out quite as much as some of the others. What's her name? Lost Bottoms Grace.
Mm-hmm.
That was a freakish cross. There were 4 pups in that litter. All 4 made squirrel dogs. One of which is what I would call a pleasure dog. She doesn't have the big mouth that the other has. Probably not the motor, or maybe the nose, even for that matter. But uh, uh, Mike Rush raised the Murdered Out. He called him Mo.
Mm-hmm.
He won 2 world hunts as a junior dog. Lost Bottom Spike. My God, he's really, uh, especially this last year, made a tremendous showing in the hunts. He's had multiple world titles. Um, he's Hall of Fame already. He won the Nationals last year, the All Breed Nationals at Illinois. And then there's a female I raised, Porcupine Mountain Grace. She's another outstanding female. She's got a big mouth, huge motor, real accurate, or likes to have a squirrel at least. She just made Grand Squirrel Champion, and she's on her way to Hall of Fame. In fact, she's already got all of the wins that she needs. She just needs points to make Hall of Fame, so that's going to happen. So anytime you get 3 Grand Squirrel Champions, or 3 Hall of Fame dogs, or 3 dogs that have won world hunts out of a litter of 4, you've done something
It's a
right.
pretty good
So
cross.
yeah, I pat Mike Rush on the back for that one. He drove all the way from Western Arkansas uh, to my place I think it's a 32-hour round trip to drop Grace off and leave her for 2 weeks and come back and do it again 2 weeks later to pick her up. That's dedication to the
Mm-hmm.
breed. But he'd done his homework. Uh, we hunted together at LBL, and he was on the cast when I won the Breeder Showcase with Ben. So he got to see a pup out of Bud and a Hummer bitch go that he really liked at the time. Ben looked good that day. I think he was, geez, 6 for 6 that day. I don't know. But so Mike did his homework, and he determined that that's who he was going to breed to, and the rest is history. That cross has been very good. So, yeah, Hummer females seem to cross super well. Um, there's been a couple others that have been, uh, pleasure hunters bring their female and breed, and you don't always know how the pups turn out because nobody promotes them,
Mm-hmm.
you know. But I hear things, I hear guys talking about them. So
About tell us about how Bud started
sure.
and kind of the methods you use, and even if he was just a natural, maybe you could go into how you like to start pups in general, and kind of what your process is with that.
Well, yeah. At the time, my my only, like I said, I was still kind of new to the cur dog world. Um, I just take them for walks. If I went to the woods, he went with me. If I cut wood, I take him with me. If I see a squirrel in the yard, I go get him and walk him around the tree where I saw it. Ultimately, that is how he started. The first squirrel he ever barked on was right here in my front yard, and I've got a hickory tree that's a den, and the squirrels live there. And I saw a squirrel in the yard one day. I walked him over there, uh, and I videoed it. He literally ran around the tree, ran around the tree, ran around the tree, smelling, 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 and and then all of a sudden he just reared up on the side of the tree, smelled up there, and started treeing. I was like, "You got to be kidding me!" He's just a little tyke, 5 months old maybe. I don't know. It was just a little guy, and I thought, "Oh my!" the The first time he treed in the wild, but I call that a yard squirrel. I don't know why it's any different, but uh, it was that same fall. Joe Newland was coming up to see his sister who lived not far from here, and he said, "Hey, always wanted to kill a black squirrel. Can we go and try?" I said, "Sure." I can't hunt any private land right now because it's going to be deer season, but we got some state land. There's some black squirrels there, so we went. He brought jukebox. I think he called her Nano and some other pup, and I took Bud just basically for the ride. And Joe will tell you to this day he was so impressed with that pup because he was gone. I mean, just he'd say, "Where's that pup at?" I said, "Hey, he's 285 yards over there." No kidding. And a few minutes later, "Where's that pup at?" "Oh, he's 170 yards over this side." And he was just amazed that he had that kind of motor as a baby. And anyway, Joe's dog's treed, and we're walking in there, and we hear this other dog barking. He said, "Is that my pup?" I said, "I don't know. I've never heard your pup bark." He said, "That ain't my pup. That's your pup." He took off running, and my pup was split tree just over the hill from his old dog. And man, we beat around there and tried to find a squirrel. We never could find it. It was a den tree, but he said, "I'm going to breed to that sucker. That is amazing." So anyway, that was the first time he ever treed in the wild, and it was nice because I had a witness.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, I tell you, the biggest thing that helped me was Ron Woodward. He had time to hunt. He was going up north. He retired, and so he took Bud up north and hunted. he'd hunt Bud in the morning, and then he'd hunt Annie at night, and then he'd hunt Annie the next morning and hunt Bud that night, blah, blah, blah. But he killed 100 squirrels with Bud in a month up north. And that really put his feet on solid ground for, just turning him loose and going and getting treed. And that was a big help to me. But as far as my program, uh, getting puppies started, kind of, I don't want to say I have a knack for it, but I have a passion for pups. I like pups. I usually try to raise 3 or 4 every year. But I've got a little city park a couple towns away that seems to have a lot of park squirrels in it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's wooded in the back. I can walk puppies in there and usually get them on a couple of hot squirrels. It's not one of them parks where you can turn a pup loose that's going to take off and run through the world. Um, it takes us the right pup that kind of wants to keep tabs on you. Um, Beyond that, if I can't get them in there, if I got a pup that's a little bit more wild, I've got a couple of woodlots here by the house that I try to keep squirrels in and not kill too many, and I can usually expose them enough to where they'll start if it's in them,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And I'm not a guy that's gonna keep uh, fooling with one for 18 months. I mean, if they're not doing something by 9, 10 months old, I start I start looking at maybe getting rid of them or calling them. Uh, but 12 months old, you're in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
I know my dogs. I know this line, and I'm not. I'm kind of a cherry picker. Even if I get 2 or 3 pups started, uh, I'm not a guy to raise 3 pups. But I'll start 3 pups and pick the one I want. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So if that helps you understand what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So
So let's talk about his hunt style. How do you, or do you normally just cast him, road, walk hunt? Tell me about how you hunt with him.
I do a couple of different ways. I like with all my dogs to tailgate hunt, drop and go, drop and go. I just think that gives them a little bit of drive. Um, but now as they get older, I'm prone to take off. Just park the truck and walk hunt. I do not ever road hunt. I'm not a road hunter. I guess in my years of coon hunting, I found it can make dogs lazy. Uh, Guys might argue with me. Maybe cur dogs are different, but I don't like it. The only time I would ever consider road hunting a dog would be a pup that won't stay treed. Like you just can't get to them in time. And I think the benefit to it is if they do get treed, you're already on top of them,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So that I see the purpose for it there, but I simply have not had to do it, and I almost refuse to start. You know, I like around here to cast them across fields, especially early on. You pull up to a woods, you get them out, you let them run around, and then when they start treeing, then I start backing the truck off. I'll park 50 yards from the woods and make them go because they know, at that point they know what you're out there for.
Mm-hmm.
And then tomorrow I might go back 100 yards. Pretty soon I'm pitching them half a mile across the field. I want my dogs to go, and I don't want to see them again until they're treed. Um, so that's my typical program is to teach them get away from me, get gone. Now I don't care if you tree a squirrel 25 yards away or 50 yards away. Tree them as you come to them, but get gone. You know, go find one. And I believe that the way I do things and the way I pitch them across fields, it teaches them, to get to the woods at least, and start hunting. So I like that type of dog. Bud is that type of dog. I can pitch him across the field, just about any field that you can pull up to that I've got permission to hunt. I can send him from the road. He's going to go. He's going to go get in the woods and get treed somewhere. Taking off walking. He's a sweeping type dog. Uh, if I had a fault with Bud at any point in his life, is that he would occasionally want to swing behind you, and I don't necessarily like that, especially if you walk him off of a tree. It's almost like he wants to loop back around that tree before he heads out. And it's like, no, I want to point you north, and I want you to go north, not south and then north. uh, and I don't know where that comes from. I honestly don't. I think one time when he was young, this is my theory, we treated a squirrel, and I couldn't find it. And I walked him off that tree, and I flipped him loose, and he swung back around, and that squirrel bailed out right in front of him. I don't know if he heard it, like he knew he had it, or why he went back. But when he went back, that sucker bailed. And ever since then, it was like on his mind that if he swings back by a tree, he might see that squirrel again. And so we had to actually try to correct that. Like, that's the one fault. If I had a fault with him, that was it. He'd want to, you'd pull him off a tree, walk your 30, and sometimes he'd want to go right back by that tree before he'd line out. It drove me nuts. But I almost think it was learned behavior from that one squirrel. Beyond that, he just always had a motor. He was not a leave the country type dog, but he'd be 700, 900 over here to the right. And if he couldn't find nothing, the next thing you know, he'd be 900 over there to the left. And you would rarely see him. But if it was just dead, he might come back by, but he's going to come by on a run. And as he got older and the way I hunt, he learned to make some den trees. He's a dog that would get you on the card in the midday round. If there wasn't nothing moving, you might make 6 den trees, and I'm fine with that. I've always said I'm not driving to Kentucky or Tennessee or wherever to pull a dog out of the truck that has to have a squirrel before it can get treed. Because if they get you through the midday, if they get you through the first round, you're dead in the second round. I need a dog that's going to make something happen. And if that means you go find a den tree over there 300 yards, then so be it. Now, I also like a dog that's got some brains, and if squirrels are stirring, they go to work. They go to treeing squirrels. But if they've made a big loop and nothing's happening, they know it. Most of these dogs know, hey, squirrels aren't stirring. Some of these cur dogs will come stand at your feet like it's time to go because nothing's happening. That's not my line. My dogs are going to go do something. They're going to go get wooded somewhere. And that's really helped me with Bud to campaign him and compete with those guys that in that midday round when the squirrels stop stirring. Not so much in Michigan, but other states, they do. They stop stirring. And he'd go out there and find him a den tree and get you on the card, And sometimes we get beat by a squirrel because somebody went and found one. But, that's part of the game. So that would be his hunt style, But as far as motor, he was never a dog that was going to leave the country. If he did have to go far, you could hear him. He had a mouth to carry. 900 yards is not a big deal to hear him treed. So that helped. Um, like I said, the first little story I told about hunting with uh, Rocky and Dot the Eye and Blackout. If squirrels were moving, like on the ground moving, he could make it happen. You'd have your hands full to beat him because he was a squirrel dog. He'd know, hey, squirrels are stirring. I don't have to settle on this den. I can go find a real hot one, and he'd start producing. That's the kind of dog I think that really excels in the competition world. The ones that have the brains to know squirrels are stirring, so let's go find one. Versus squirrels are not stirring, so we're looking for a den tree.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I know there's guys that they don't want to walk to a tree unless they know they're going to cock the gun and shoot a squirrel. That's not me. Uh, my training style is specific to make dogs be able to get treed when nothing's moving. And I say that because it fits my job. There's many days of the week that we take a dog to work with us. We might go to Lapeer and fix a window, and then when we're done, we hit some state land and hunt midday for a couple hours, and then maybe do another job on the way back or whatever. But most of the hunting I do is right in the middle of the day. Yeah, it's a rare occasion that I get to go first thing in the morning or late at night. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so that's conducive to what we're doing. So
How would you describe his nose?
he has a what I've always called a Kemmer dog winding nose. His mama is think about this. She is half. No, I'm sorry. His mother's mother is half Kemmer, inbred cross actually, full brother sister cross. Um, Frederick's Mountain Jake and Frederick's Mountain Lou. I think that's right, Jake and Lou. Uh, there was somebody, might have been Al Inglesman, told me that the Kemmer dogs have big winding noses, and I always thought that's probably where Bud got it from. But I've seen him. I've actually seen the dog on his back legs, up up on his back feet, smell in the air, and come through and tree. And it's like we've been standing here for 5 minutes. No squirrel came through here. What is he doing? And it's like, holy crap, he's got a squirrel, you know. And it's like, wow, he must have winded that thing. And it's not all the time that you see him pull that off, but I've seen him do it, and so have other people. It's like he can he can smell squirrels that haven't been on the ground yet, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he's got a real good nose, um, and I think too some of it's like again the way we hunt. They condition to sometimes treeing on less scent. They don't have to have an ambushed squirrel to tree. In fact, I don't even want an ambush hunter, you know. Uh, so he's got the nose to tree squirrels, and like I said, I've seen him wind, and I've seen a lot of his pups wind. But yeah, he's got a good nose. Uh, I don't. I would not call him a cold nosed dog. I know his daddy, Bobtail Fred, was a hotter nosed. Uh, I would say almost an ambush type hunter. So he's got to have the nose coming from the mama side, you know, the Franklin's Thunder Sport and the Kemmer breeding that's back in behind him. I'm thinking that's where he got that nose from.
Okay.
So
Have you hunted him at night much, or just kept him as a squirrel
yeah.
dog?
Oh no. He's a coon dog. In fact, he's an OMCBA night champion.
Okay.
Uh, I thought about pursuing Grand, but it doesn't mean anything to me. So I made him a night champion, basically because when you're at Jamestown and you're in a hotel and you think, man, I'm bored. I could be out coon hunting right now. So yeah, I put him in some coon hunts. He is a coon dog. I've got pictures of him on the tailgate with 5, 6, 7 coons that we killed at night. It's just the older I get, the less I want to be out at night. You know, I kind of miss the coon hounds. It's a great thought, but when it really boils down to it, when I got to get up so early in the morning, I'm like, nah. My wife will say, I thought you were going coon hunting tonight. Yeah, the weatherman said it might rain. You know,
Yeah.
I just rather go out in the daytime and kill squirrels. But yeah, he'll tree coons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about his conformation? Like if you were to take him in his prime fighting weight, you would say, pull him out of the dog box, getting ready to cut him. What would you be looking at there? Just his
Bud is he's an athlete. He keeps himself in shape. He's got I call them hams that are like a dang pig. I mean, he has humongous butt because he's on the move all the time. He's a hyper dog. Uh, I have a fenced backyard, okay,
hmm
and he will literally pace the back fence. I don't know why. He's always done it. He will pace for, and I'm talking at a high speed of not run. I call it a fast trot. He will pace the entire length of the back fence, left and right for a couple hours every morning. And then he'll go lay in the shade when it gets hot. And then every evening, he'll be right back out there pacing until dark. And it's what he's always done. It used to drive me nuts. In the kennel, he will drive me nuts because he's bouncing off the walls. And I've never liked that about him. But I've learned to appreciate the fact that he will keep himself in tip-top shape. He's never been fat. Um, I run into an old timer. Here in Michigan, we have what's called quiet time. From April 15th to July 8th, you're not allowed to run dogs. Well, I run into an old timer, 92-year-old friend of mine that's been squirrel and coon hunter since he was little, and he looked at Bud. It was coming right out of, I think it was probably early August. And he looked at him and he said, that dog has not had any quiet time. In other words, you've been hunting. I said, no, he keeps himself in shape. He always looks like that. He was like, no, you've been hunting that dog. I said, no, I haven't. But yeah, he was a solid athlete, very square built. I think Alan Franklin said of his mother, man, she's built like old Thundersport, real broad at the chest. And that's kind of how Bud was, a stocky built dog. He had big feet for his size, you know, just a real, not big boned, but a athlete, not a leggy, racy type, but an athlete, just a hunt all day, not wear down. You could hunt him for 6 hours, and he'd be pulling on the leash for you to cut him again. Always in shape. To this day, he is. He looks good. You know.
How old is he now?
12.
Okay.
Yep. 12
Uh,
years old.
what's his head and his ear set like?
He's got short ears, but they're not high, pricky ears. They're down on the side of his head. Big, square, chuckle head. Uh, Everyone has always looked at Bud and said, he looks old. He looks gray. Well, he's got what I call a reverse brindle. He's a light brindle, but he's got that buttermilk Kemmer color in his brindle, especially in his face and his legs. And people say, he looks gray. Well, it's not gray. It's yellow. It's that super light yellow brindle. It just does. It looks gray because of the dark, the dark stripes
Mm-hmm.
contrasting against that light yellow. But if you really look at the color, it's not gray, it's yellow.
Oh.
And so he's looked old his whole life. But and I'm not necessarily even a fan of that brindle. I like a dark brindle dog myself. But he's a unique looking animal. So
What's his coat like?
he's got what I call an everyday cur dog coat. He does not have a heavy coarse coat. Um, he does not have a real thin uh, coat. His sister had a thin coat. In the summer, she'd get real thin, just real fine hair. Bud's always had just an average coat, good coat in the winter. He doesn't struggle to stay warm, but he don't have any of the shepherd traits or the heavy coat. He doesn't have a double coat. Never had any issue with this coat at all. So obviously we talked about the color,
Yeah.
but beyond that, he's normal.
What about dew claws?
He's got dew claws.
Double rears or
Yeah, not double rears, but he has rears. He does
okay?
have rears. I always have to remember to cut them because they'll actually circle back around
Mm-hmm.
and grow back into the pad. So I'm always watching for that. But yeah, I'm not a fan of dew claws.
I'm not either.
The first cross I ever made with Libby on Apache, I had my vet talk their tails, and he took their dew claws off. And I sold one of them pups to somebody down south, and the guy called me. He's like, "I'm kindly offended. You took the dew claws off. That's a cur dog thing. You're supposed to leave them on." And I was like, "What?" I hate them things, just asking for trouble. But yeah, I've been kind of leaving them on ever since I got chewed out for it.
Yeah, I don't understand how they can help a dog tree anything, and
No,
they just seem like a good thing to get hurt, if you ask me, for
they
the most
do.
part.
Yeah, my best friend had a bird dog that tore one, and it was, oh, geez, 30 years ago. It was $400 to sew that thing back together and fix it, and it tore it up the leg. It was a mess.
Yep.
But some of them are attached,
Yeah, and
and
like
some of them flop.
with the fronts, but the fronts I'll usually leave when I have litter, but the rears it's just pretty
Yeah.
rare from my experience. Just not that many of the rear dews are really
Yep.
attached and usable like most of the fronts
Yep.
are, and so what good
Yep.
are they at that point? The
Yeah.
the breed
Yeah.
standard says usable
Right.
dues and double dues, so
Yeah.
if they're not usable, might as well chop them off, in my opinion.
Right.
You kind of touched on most of this. What would you say his biggest strengths as a dog is?
Strength would be my in my view motor. He's never ever that I can ever remember come in and stood around. Never hardly ever see the dog. He's busy, 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 busy. His second strength would be his mouth. People have joked that Bud's making cur dog mouths great again, and there's some truth to that. He's thrown some dogs with some really good mouths. Um, as far as tree and squirrels, I've never had a spell where I'm like, geez, what's your problem? How come you can't tree a squirrel? He's always treeing squirrels. He's been a natural squirrel dog. I've been walking into trees before, and it's like, what is he doing over here? There's no way he's got a squirrel. And you look up, and it's like, oh my gosh, where did that squirrel come from? Why is he here? And it's just so weird. He produces squirrels. Um, every once in a while, a dog gets stuck on his head and try to work something out, and it's like you just, come on, dude, pick your head up and go find one that you can handle, and he'll produce a squirrel. Uh, it's rare that you see him get bogged down. Uh, Heck, he got bogged down in the World Hunt finals and messed around. It was a blowdown. We went to this spot, and Bud got after a fox squirrel that had been all over these treetops. He barked around and farted around and gave me a minus. And he finally treed and had the squirrel. But I thought, you rascal, it took you too long to do this. But that's rare.
Mm-hmm.
That's rare. He's just a good animal. He really is. Bud is a smart dog. I'll give you an example. I brought him in my house, into my living room, and I've got two steps that come up out of my living room into my kitchen. For some reason, he never wanted to come up those two steps. He was content to stay in the living room. But I never taught him uh, that he's supposed to go outside to go to the bathroom. He just never went in the house. And we'd put him out and he'd go and, he'd go pace for a while and then come back in. I never house trained him, but he was just naturally broke. It's like he knew that this wasn't the place to go to the bathroom. I always appreciated that about him.
Mm-hmm.
But he's also hard-headed. He's the type of dog that you can get after him and it don't wreck his day. At the end of the day, you're basically just a ride to the woods. He don't need you to love on him all the time, although he does love some attention. Um, he's the type of dog that if you got to whoop on him for something, he don't go hide under the truck or out. He's raring to go. He'll take the correction and go do his job. I almost can't stand a temperamental or quirky dog that you can't yell at them or whip on them without them shutting down.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fault to me. I don't like it. And so that's one of the reasons I've always been confident in breeding Bud. He's a hard hunter. He likes to have a squirrel. He's got a huge mouth. He's a solid hard tree dog. You don't have to worry about him leaving. You can go score other dogs' trees and let him sit there. He'll be there. And those are some things that I got to have. And then of course, being able to be corrected is huge for me. I like that trait. That just shows me soundness of mind and no quirks. I don't like quirks.
Mm-hmm. Well, on the flip side of that, and you touched on this a little bit, but what would you say his weaknesses the dog is?
Well, we talked about the flipping back around and sliding in behind you and then going on. I don't know. Pleasure hunters probably don't even think about stuff like that. Maybe they do, but to me, it's a quirk. It's a fault. And like I said, I think it was a learned behavior from that one squirrel. I don't know, but ever since then, that issue of cutting into the north and him swinging around to the south and then going north or going east or whatever always drove me nuts. So I got to where as soon as I seen him break left, right, I'd start bumping him and make him go straight. And you could get him, turned around where he all right, I'm not going to go back. But every now and then, like he'd forget and he'd do it. And then once he did it, if you let him do it, he'd do it again. You had to stay on him about that. You know? And I'm sure if I let him be the animal that he wanted to be, he might tree more squirrels. I don't know. I mean, sometimes dogs go behind you and tree squirrels that they smelled on the way to a tree. I've seen dogs tree and look over and see another squirrel, and when you pull them off that tree, they go tree the squirrel that they just saw. It's like, how did they do that? That's pretty smart.
Yeah.
I never wanted to let him do what he wanted to do. I want him to do what I want him to do. So I struggled to keep him right, what I called right. Like, if I point you north, you better go north. You want to go 200 yards and make a right, you go ahead, but don't go behind me.
Mm-hmm.
So that was probably his biggest weakness. if you want to call it that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Beyond that, I mean, he's a good animal. He's good around other animals. Maybe a little growly around some males from time to time. I think most of them are. Um, but beyond that, I've never ever had any problems with him following females. When it comes time to hunt, he's there to hunt. You know, um, dogs could cover him. He wasn't an idiot. I'd say if you fell on top of him or something, he might put you in your place. But I tolerate some of that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not. I don't want dogs leaving trees because somebody come and covered them. You
Yeah.
know, and if somebody come and covered them and wants to get a little rough, I'm okay with you standing your ground. Just work it out. Figure it out. If you have to stay away from them, then stay away from them. If you got to back up, but don't leave.
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
So, but he's been a gentleman most all of his life. I've never had any problems. So, like I say, he's an all around good animal that way. He's good natured.
Yeah. Well, Adam, I sure appreciate you coming on and giving us your time today. I've really enjoyed having a chat with you about your dog, and I think everybody's going to enjoy listening to it.
Well, I enjoy the opportunity, and the old dog's probably not going to live too much longer. He's showing some signs of age, and I expect, and maybe it won't happen, but with what he's produced, I fully suspect he'll end up in the Hall of Fame. I think he has earned the place. Um, you got dogs like Hummer and Bud that have complemented one another. Um, I think that they belong there.
Yeah.
So we'll
Is
see what happens.
is he still fertile? Do you know? Have
Yeah, far as I know. Now I had his semen checked a year ago, and the vet said it's just not good enough to freeze, but you could still get a jip bred as of right now, live cover. I bred a female this summer, and it's actually a female that has some female problems, and didn't she didn't take the last time we bred her, and I know he was very fertile then. Um, but she did have two pups, so I was
oh
like, well, dang, the old man still got it,
yeah.
you know. So I got a couple females that guys want to breed, and I'm willing to let them try. I did notice he had a harder time getting them bred. Bud was always a dog that would breed one under a dang truck if he had to. I mean, he'd get it done. There was only one female that he could not breed, and that's because she was, well, it was lost bottom's grace. She'd lose her crap. I mean, she liked the idea until they got on her back, and then
Hmm.
she'd flip out. So she was bred artificially. But beyond that, he has bred every female that's ever come here. Some of them were pretty rough.
Did,
He'd get it done.
had you had him collected prior to when you had him tested here a while back?
Yes, I still have a few straws left on him. I just sent a couple to Louisiana to Ducey. Um, he's going to breed Dub's mother, Grace, uh, to that. And anyway, yeah, I've got a couple straws left. I think I have three. I had him collected when he was two, and that was the Nailer in Ben Cross. He was actually that was uh, a frozen semen cross because I didn't want to breed him that young. But Clarence Smith agreed to go ahead and breed her artificially and give me a stud fee pup
Hmm.
as well. So that's where Porcupine Mountain Ben came from. But yeah, the problem with Bud is he had the littlest testicles, and when you collected him, you were only going to get like two breedings. Some of
Mm.
these, some of these guys are getting 8 and 10. Well, it costs the same.
Yeah.
So I only ever did it twice because it just wasn't to me. It was like, man, I can't shell $500 out for maybe two straws, you
Yeah.
know. Uh, So I got him collected twice, enough that I think we ended up, boy, I think I ended up with maybe 6 draws at the end of the day. And I believe I still have 3.
Okay.
So, anyway.
But yeah, once again, I appreciate you coming on here. And all right, everybody, take care and keep wearing out that boot leather. I just want to give everyone that's listening a sincere thank you. Getting this podcast going has been a project. I really hope you're enjoying it, and if you don't mind, give the show a good rating and review wherever you're listening to it at, or share it on your social media to help get some traction. I appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to your feedback.